Hi, good afternoon, everyone. This is the Scott County Parks Advisory Commission, and it is March 3rd, 2021, right at 6 o'clock, and we're going to get started here with our meeting being held via video conference. Because it is by video conference, we're actually going to try a couple things different to maybe both speed things along and to get full participation. So I do want the Park Advisory Commission members to know to be ready to unmute yourself to participate. If for some reason you are not being recognized or aren't getting on but have some comments you want to share or questions you want to ask, please, even if you have to verbally raise your hand or do it via a feature in the Zoom, let us know. I do plan on following back up with everyone to make sure they have a chance for final comments. But we do want this to be a more of a face-to-face conversation about some of the topics today. So we won't have a real slide presentation. And I do see that there's some additional staff here joining us. I would ask that if they are not participating in the discussion that they remain muted and unmute yourself then if they have things to add or share. So we're going to see how that goes today. But we'll get started right away then with roll call. Kristen French.
Here.
We understand Kathy Gerlach is unable to join us today. Jerry Hennon.
Here.
Eric Spieler.
Here.
Pat Steeg.
Here.
Mark Ewert.
Here.
John Ulrich.
Here.
And myself, Barb Hedstrom, are present. We'll proceed now with the Pledge of Allegiance. If you don't have an opportunity to have a flag right outside your window like I do, I did bring in a little flag that we can all follow along on. So I'll go ahead and start with, I pledge allegiance
to the
flag
flag
of the United
States of America,
and to the republic for which it stands,
one
nation,
nation,
under God,
indivisible,
liberty and justice for all.
liberty and justice for all.
Couple more.
That's always interesting, isn't it? Thank you. Let's go ahead and review the agenda right now. There will be one agenda item to add under number 8A, item number 4, and that will be a county board workshop update. Were there any other agenda items to address right now? Patty?
None from staff. Thanks.
Okay. Anybody else have any other agenda items?
Motion to approve as amended, Ewert.
All right, there's a motion.
Second.
Can I have a second?
Second, French.
And that. Thank you, Kristen. Then we'll proceed on to
We should vote.
item number 4. We don't have any. Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you. Let's have a vote on approving the agenda. All in favor say aye.
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 Aye. All right, moving on. No citizens are here. We'll proceed. No items for number 5. We'll proceed right on now to number 6A. The internal park wayfinding and park welcome info project.
So I just unmuted myself. So this is this item is going to be presented by Lynn Stoltzman and Mandy Whiteside. Do I still see Mandy on here? So you are welcome to unmute yourselves. and provide your overviews.
Hi, everybody. I'm Lynn Stoltzman. I think I've met some of you in the past. I'm Director of Facility Services, and Mandy will be introducing their committee, but we are looking at signage and wayfinding throughout the Park District right now, and we have created two district-wide committees. The one that I'm leading is focusing on in-park signage, and as you probably all are aware, we've had a lot of new users in the Park District this past year, and parks are getting really busy, and we want to make sure that people have a positive experience when they're out hiking, biking, skiing, however they're using our parks and enjoying our trails. And so I'll be leading a little exercise in a little bit with you all to get your input.
Thanks, Lynn. And I'm Mandy Whiteside. I'm the Director of Marketing and Community Engagement at the Park District. And similar to Lynn, I'm leading another team of staff to look at what we're calling our information and welcome kiosks. So if you think about the experience that a park visitor has, they drive into the park and then they've parked their vehicle and they get out of their car and now are trying to determine how they go next, where they can go, what they can do in the park, and learn a little bit more about the park and the area that they're in. The thinking is, as we have new visitors to parks and people who might not be as familiar with nature and outdoor recreation, we want to create as welcoming of an experience as possible. And so the focus for this team is how we can get people into the parks and out of their car and then off on their way, and making sure that they have all of the information that they need to ensure that they have a good visit to the park. And then sort of where our work team's efforts end is where Lynn's team's efforts start in terms of that wayfinding and exploring the parks and the areas of the park and the trails within the park. So with that, I'll turn it over to Lynn to kind of facilitate the exercise.
So if you read the notes, I had mentioned that the wayfinding team was just getting kicked off, and we did meet last week, and it was a lot of fun because we had a lot of people on the committee that did not know each other from throughout the Park District. And if you read through, I mentioned just this kind of exercise of thinking about starting from a fresh start. And I'm sure some of you are park users, and I like to think about, we are opening a brand new park in Scott County. And this park maybe is, it's a large park, maybe it's over 1,000 acres, and we've got paved trails and we've got turf trails and things like that throughout the park. And thinking about in your own life, if you're a walker or biker or skier, and you're planning and you're going to go visit a new park for the first time, what information and what do you need to know to be able to navigate and use the trails when you arrive? So let's imagine Mandy's team has done an awesome job of welcoming us into the park. We're at the start of the trail, or we've got a rental skis or whatever, and now we're going to be going out on our way. What kind of information is important for you to know, either before you get to the park or once you get to the trail? What kind of information or signs and details are you going to be looking at along the way?
Please join in. Does anybody have any ideas?
For me, go ahead.
Go ahead. Okay, I'll start. I like to bike, but I would not want to bike Murphy Hanaran because of the hills. So I guess I would like to know the difficulty of a trail for either walking or biking or even rollerblading.
Sure. Yeah, definitely very important. Thanks.
Mark?
For me, it's am I allowed on the trail, right? This whole business of I can walk on the trail until X amount of snow, or maybe it's the first snowflake, and then I can't walk on the trail because it's now a ski trail. Can I bike? I just, when I walk up to a trail, can I bike on it? Can I walk on it? Can I take my dog on it? I have no concept of this path I have now come across, if I'm allowed to be on it or not. And I find that frustrating for me personally every time I walk out onto a trail.
Great.
Yeah, and
Thanks,
just
Mark.
to follow up on that, even then within a trail, you get on one and then you'll come to maybe a cross section, which might then have totally different requirements. And so, you know, at each cross section then, is the same amount of information going to be there, or how is it communicated when you have different choices within the park to get off of one trail and into some other type of trail?
Sure. So kind of those transitions.
Yeah. Because that happens where those the types of trails overlap each other.
You bet.
Similarly, I wanted to mention that if we have a trail system within a park, whether it be turf trail or paved trail or an intersection of the two, I think people are interested in knowing, obviously, directions so they don't get lost and stay on the trail they want to be on, but also then what type of distance are they looking at? So if I come to an intersection and I decide, oh, that looks interesting, I think I'll take this spur off to the left. I would first want to know what type of distance am I taking on and where is it going to land me if I decide to venture off my original route.
You bet. Thank you.
I know when I've been on trails, sometimes I don't even know what the marker I should be looking for is. I've been on trails where it's like, look for the white painted arrow on the rock, or there'll be blue signs or yellow ribbons around trees or something next to a tree. And if you see one wayfarer, you should be able to see another one. So I'd like to know what I should be looking for from what signage is being used to direct me on a trail.
Yeah, I think that consistent identification is really important, to recognizable identification, so you know. I know the state parks had that kind of that passport hike system, and so those trails are fairly easy to follow because they keep telling you, you know, you're on that specific route. Any other thoughts?
How about any points of interest on a trail?
Sure.
Is there a waterfall? Is there, a neat barn? Is there a campground? Are there bathrooms?
Mm-hmm.
I just have a couple of other quick comments. One is I had done some focus group work on trail wayfinding about a year ago, and one of the things that we heard was in the park and recreation field, we oftentimes have our signs, maybe green or brown or some type of earth tone color to blend in with the background. And what we heard loud and clear, it was, forget about that. I want a bright sign that I will see and I won't miss it. It'll be there staring me in the face, and I'm not going to go right past it and miss it. The
Yeah,
other
good
comment I was going to make, I'm sorry, the other comment
Yeah,
I was
good
going to
point.
make, and you kind of alluded to this in your written materials, is, you know, I think it's going to be increasingly more important than ever that we have either words or symbols that are in multiple languages, you know, and it comes both to the whole idea of welcoming people and feel that they belong, which of course is impossible to do if we're not even able to communicate with them. And secondly, you know, they want to have the same type of experience as everyone else, so that whatever type of language or symbols we use, we want to make sure that people who are not English speaking have told us, yes, that works for me, that's great, and not assume that it's going to work until we've asked them.
Okay, Shakopee School District, I think there's like 40 or 50 different languages spoke. If you start putting languages on how many languages do you want? We live in the United States of America. Our language is English, and I think we should stay with that.
Well, Jerry, I would just say, first of all, we do not have an official language in our country.
No,
And
but
second of all, if we want to welcome people, then we have to make them feel welcome.
Okay, both my parents
Yeah. And
grew up talking Germany. They got to school, they learned English. Okay, this was what was expected, and I think we should start expecting that also.
Yep, I think both of those points are really valid, that, you know, new people to the country, how do you engage them while they are learning English? And I think some of the things that were brought up regarding symbols and having universal symbols that everybody can understand, not based on language and not based on even age, you know, that can be easily understood. I think those are some of the things that can help overcome some of those situations, because I think Jerry is right. You're never going to incorporate languages that includes everybody, you know, at least from a hard printed kind of sign thing. So, you know, looking at alternative ways to both be welcoming in other languages, but recognizing you're not going to be able to include everyone. You know, both of them are very good points. Does anybody else have any thoughts that they're thinking about wayfaring within trails and parks?
I think too, it would be good if before you get to out on the trails and you just are arriving at the park, is there any information that's helpful to know up front about the park or what's in the parks, what you can do, how you can do it?
So kind of that welcoming kiosk. What would you?
Yeah.
What things are needed there?
So, hey, Barb, from my perspective, the signs had to be easy to read, right? There's so many different signs at so many different parks, you can never figure out what's going on, right? Some of them, the printing is so small, some of it just very not detailed. And it needs to be very simple that a biker, runner, rollerblader, roller skier, everybody should be able to look at it quickly and be able to read it all the same way.
I agree with Eric as well. Simple to read and very visual, so that you can get you don't have to read everything, you can look at it and kind of get a picture of the whole lay of the land from the beginning.
Agreed.
Sometimes
That's a
one of the
great point.
challenges that we have at some of our parks, it's a challenge and it's a plus. And if you think of like Murphy Hanrahan as an example, we have multiple entrances from different places with different amenities. So thinking about that perspective, does that bring up any sort of information?
For me, I like maps, right? So
Yeah.
give me a visual of the park, show me a symbol for where the beach is, show me a symbol for where I can fish, show me a symbol for where the trails start. I'm not all about words, and I don't want to read a paragraph. Show me a visual and show me some symbols that will give me the layout of that park.
I echo that. I think that's really important. And also a lot of the trails too, was covered in the previous conversation. It says, this junction will take you to, checkpoint X, and then this will take you to checkpoint A and B. If at every entrance, you need to have that global picture that marks those as well. You can even take a screenshot of it or something, but if it's all clear from every entrance point, then when you're in the middle, it's a lot easier to visually see what's going on.
I also think you need to have a distance back to the parking lot or to the main area. Murphy Hanrahan's a very difficult and challenging place if you're either on the horseback trails, if you're on the ski trails, or if you're on the mountain bike trails. Each one's slightly different. You get to an intersection, it says number 134. I have no idea what 134 means, right? Or you get to one that says 3 going to 2. Does that mean 3 kilometers left going to 2 kilometers? It's, we need to make it very simple for someone to understand it's 2.6 miles back this way or 3 miles to this other intersection,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I share your frustration, Eric, like at Murphy Hanrahan. If trails are numbered or alphabetized, I expect them to go in order, but that only applies if you start at one spot. And so having, trails sometimes that are numbered and you come in out of the chronological order, it can be very confusing sometimes. And it takes you, sometimes you have to travel away to start figuring out what that ordering system is, unless that's identified and explained at a kiosk in the beginning.
Yep. No, I 100% agree. I've been going to Murphy Hanrahan for 33 years, and I was there like a week and a half ago skiing. I still had to use my GPS to figure out how far our loop was, right? Because some trails are closed, and so you have to go down a different path. So you just have to figure out how much time you need to get back to the car or whatever, it might be, or what kind of distance.
Yeah, because that's not a good one to get lost in the dark.
Oh, definitely not.
No.
Does anybody else have any comments or ideas, especially as the introductory kiosks in addressing multiple access points? I guess one of the things that I would like to know is, it might not be possible to have the same information at every entrance point, but it's helpful to know where the primary entrance point is. You are here, here's where more detailed information can be found. So even if it's not at your entrance point, which might be less used or whatever, you're able to navigate to that informational kiosk if you so choose to get more detailed information.
That's a great point. And one of the pieces that as the work team is looking at is where are the places that we should have these types of kiosks for parks that have multiple entrances? Is there some validity to having these kiosks at different places where people come in? So it may not be accessible always to get back to the main entrance. So then should we be duplicating that information elsewhere?
Madam Chair, this is Patty. Can I ask a question?
Yes, absolutely. I forgot who I was for a moment.
This is for Lynn and Mandy as well as the commissioners. how do people feel when you're out hiking in a larger park and you come to, like a lot of times you'll come across like roughly like 18 by 18 or maybe 11 by 17-inch signs that show you like, here you are, and you can go this way or this way. And I've seen these in state parks, in our parks, lots of different areas. And I struggle with, and I'm a map person, I struggle when they don't have a photo or topographic lines, if they're just flat. And it gives you some amount of information, but I've actually, in using those, been pretty lost twice in parks, and which is super embarrassing because I'm always like, oh, I know how to read maps. But I'm wondering, Lynn and Mandy, do you hear from the public about, because I is one or the other better? I think sometimes having a topographic lines also is confusing to other people who don't know what they are. So sometimes having more of a graphical representation, I think, is cleaner. For me personally, it messes me up. Like, I have a harder time reading that. So I'm just kind of throwing it out there. I think it's a struggle to meet everyone's needs. And I'm wondering if that's come up in your groups or if you've heard from the public on that. And then I would love to know the park commissioners, because all of you are park users. Is that, does one or the other resonate with you? Do you have experience appreciating one or the other?
I think, Patty, so
Well,
I
when
can, go ahead.
I was just going to say, when you were talking about that, the first thing that came to mind for me is downhill ski runs where, that they're all marked with a color or a double diamond, and everybody learns and knows that language. That you're going to know that you're going to experience what type of slope just, by the color run that you're on. So that was just my comment on it.
I was just cross-country skiing a couple weeks ago, and the place I went was rated for beginners and experts. And I had no idea which was the trail for beginners, which I wanted. And there weren't enough "you are here's," there weren't enough arrows along the trail. So anyhow.
I think, Patty, to answer for our group, when we're looking at this, I think the topographic lines and some of those elements tend to be, if the more familiar you are with nature and with navigating, I think that the sense that, and the feedback that we're hearing, that's the comfort level, and we're really approaching this from the beginner, the new user perspective. And so I think it will be more graphically depicted. And I think to some of the comments that have been said too, of the frequency and how things carry out to guide you along the path to reinforce that you're going the right way, you're going in the right direction, you're still on the trail that you want, and how that carries out beyond the map to reinforce that this is the direction you want to be going or you're planning to go.
I was just going to mention the other thing that we heard in our committee too is, especially for people that are don't do a lot of navigating or are not familiar with being out in parks, and we find this on the regional trails too, with the placement of if you have a "you are here" and you have a map, and usually on our maps north is at the top, but if you're on a trail and you're walking to the north and you see the map, that's easy to say, oh yeah, if I go straight, I'm, going up the map, so to speak, and heading north. And if I go to the right, that all lays out. But sometimes we get people that get confused, and it's easy to do if the map is, on a trail as you're going south, and you think, oh, I'm going straight, I'm going to the nature center, I'm going straight here, but it really is the opposite, just to the way the map is located. So that was another thing that came up to talk about in our group as well, is just how the maps, where they're oriented if we're out on the trails, to make it easy for people to actually use the map and interpret the map and have it match what they're actually seeing out in the park. I like the topo lines, Patty. I think one of our challenges with our maps is how do we indicate the type of trails, you know, so you've got your paved, your turf trails, and then we have so many different types of uses. We've got multi-use trails, we've got single track trails, you know, so already just the complication of being able to indicate on a map who can go where and how do we dots, dashes, dot dash, dot dash, colored lines, you know, that in itself gets so complicated. To add the topo lines makes it, you know, it's just one more layer of lines essentially, and especially for people that are not familiar with what with topo lines and how they work. I don't know, Mandy, maybe you wanted just to mention the Avenza app.
Mm-hmm. So we have started utilizing a new opportunity for folks. Avenza is an app that allows you to kind of plan your route and more easily see where you are and where you can get to. So through our website and then you can get to the app, and the app is something that you can download itself and find all of the maps that we have for the park district and our parks. It's a system that the state parks have been using for a while as well. So it's something that I think will grow in popularity and use, and it will be a more user-friendly way, I think, for people to figure out where they are when out on a trail, and then where they can get to from it and which direction to go. So it's another technology tool for individuals that have, you know, a smartphone and such with them when they're out exploring to utilize as well.
Yeah, I think, you know, that's one thing that we've kind of been focusing on, you know, like a printed material, and the potentials with the technology could solve several of those problems we talked about. Language, you know, you would be able to choose a language potentially. You would be able to change a print size that potentially that could fit you and your needs better. So, you know, I think technology has the potential to really expand this, and we all know that just about everybody travels with their smartphones, unless there's a specific purpose not to. So I'm glad you brought that up.
Mm-hmm.
I really appreciate everybody's input. I don't know if anybody had anything else to share now, but I also wanted to let you know, if you think of something after, I know how sometimes you have these topics and then something comes to you, feel free to email me or get a hold of Patty, and Patty can pass it on, your input or ideas, on to myself or Mandy as well.
Yeah,
Definitely.
since we have you here, do you want to just confirm your email for us, Lynn, just real quick?
Sure.
If anybody wants to jot that down, but otherwise we can certainly get it in other ways.
Sure, it's Lynn, Lynn, .Stoltzman, and it's a lot of letters. S as in Sam, TOLTZMANN. So Lynn.Stoltzman at 3, and it's spelled out, 3riversparks.org.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, and I really appreciate your input. It's really great for us to be able to get input and ideas from a wide variety of people. And we know you are all engaged and dedicated to our park system. So I appreciate your ideas.
I would echo that. I think you raised a lot of really good points that we can take back to our work groups, and we'll be able to integrate into, I think, the plans as we continue to move forward.
I think one thing we have to be cautious that we don't oversign things. You know, you go into a park and all you do is see signs instead of trees and scenery, which could happen.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely, for sure. There is a balance.
All right, I'd like to just take this moment, and PAC members, do you have any closing comments or anything to add? How about staff? Is there anything else on this topic? Otherwise, we'll move on with the agenda, but we still have time for some further discussions if need be.
I have a logistical question, but I'll hold it in case any of the other staff want to chime in on the questions that Lynn and Mandy have asked.
All right, not hearing from anybody else. Patty, do you want to go ahead?
Yeah, my question, Lynn and Mandy, generally, do you have an idea of a timeline yet? Or what is your target, even if it's maybe not confirmed at this point?
So for the kind of welcoming info kiosk perspective, our goal is to have kind of a recommended plan for the work group to bring to the leadership team at the Park District in May is the goal.
Okay.
And then looking at parks where it would make sense to start rolling it out and developing the priority list from that point. But the plan in place by May.
Yep, and we're just.
I do have one other further question along that line. So Three Rivers is developing this within their regional parks. Are there discussions from other regional park districts about what they're doing and how they're doing it? Is there any statewide effort within the regional park system?
That's a really good question, and we were actually just having a similar discussion about that, especially around wayfinding. And I think right now there's not necessarily a collective conversation that's happening, but I know that it's a topic that a lot of different agencies are discussing, and I would venture to guess that there will be a lot of future discussions and maybe info sharing and feedback. But right now it's not a collected, what's the word I'm trying to think of? A simultaneous activity that all of the agencies are doing together.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because I know as a group, we often talk that, especially for new park users, they don't really care who's in charge of the park or how it got there or anything like that. And, so to go from a different park to a different park, whether it's a city park, a regional park, or a state park, that's just part of what it is. And so is that, part of a public education component that there's different parks and thus expect different experiences? So just wondering, thank you. I appreciate that information.
That's a great point too.
All right, we'll give one more moment for anybody else to have any other comments regarding this topic or staff.
Okay, I think this is really a good idea, but on the other hand, let's look at the other side of it. Are staff finding many people asking questions about they want more maps, or is this something that we think is a problem? So let's solve this problem that we really don't have. I mean, it's a different way of looking at it.
Yeah.
Do we really need it, or it would really be nice to have it?
So
you don't have to answer it. It's
no, I mean,
another way of looking at this thing.
Yeah, no, it definitely is. And just with the amount of new users that we've had in the last year, which has been awesome, we are seeing an increase in the number of people that are having either issues with wayfinding or, finding their way to the right trail or lost, coming in on different entrances than what we typically have seen guests come in on. And again, we really want to make sure new users come in and that they feel welcome and they have a positive experience when they get to the park and they can find and do the things that they want to do and came for. We don't, want people to feel when they're leaving, that they're frustrated. And the other thing is just with the uptick, how many people, this year have been doing more self-guided kind of activities. So it's just, and the expectation right now is, our use is going to continue. We're going to continue to be busy. Obviously, there may be some changes, but we want to make sure that new users come in, have a positive experience, and can get to use our parks. And one of the things I said in my write-up is, the trails really are what get you to the really awesome places, a lot of the really awesome places and natural places in the park. And we want everybody to have access to those areas. So just important that we find easy ways for people to be able to navigate and get to those places.
I think Jerry has a good point, because every person will come in with a different adventure level, I guess. Some people will consider exploring the park on their own without any guide, part of the adventure and part of the fun, and others will want to have the security of knowing, what's going to happen before it happens. So it's, and even the wayfaring, or a lot of the markings that's going on sometimes is about, especially for new park users, after the second time, are you no longer a new park user, and thus all that effort into creating something is for a one-time event for each person. So, there's that balance of, do repetitive park users also have needs? And we've identified some of them, so there is a difference between an absolutely first-time visitor and someone that is familiar with a park in itself, or the concept and the layout of how parks and trails can be. So those are very good points, Jerry. Thanks.
Madam Chairman, if I might.
Absolutely.
So to me, there's a huge difference between the sign we're going to design as it relates to something that Eric might find useful, or something that Jerry might find useful. But to me, it's about that first time user, that first time experience, and if we want them to have a second experience. Because if their first time doesn't go well because they got lost on a trail or they couldn't find the restroom, they're never going to become a second time user. And I think that everyone's right that a second time user will look at that kiosk, look at that signage differently, but I'm willing to accept that because they're a second time user. If we fail them on their first trip to the park, they're never going to come back. And to me, that's what this kiosk and signage is all about, is getting that first time experience to become a second time user who can ignore the kiosk. So that's my thought.
Thank you.
Yeah, I would say, Mark, your comment is spot on. The only thing I would add is we also need to think about the infrequent user. Again, using Murphy as an example, I've hiked at Murphy many times, and I'm still not at a point where I could find my way around there on the hiking trails without the signage that is there. And I don't consider myself infrequent, but I'm not a first-time user either. So I agree with you. I think it really serves those audiences, the first-time users who we need to provide a great experience for, and those infrequent users who, the surroundings may look familiar, but they're still not sure which direction to go because they haven't been here in a long time.
Yeah, I wonder if that's some of the difference between the introductory kiosk and then the wayfaring that's out in the park. That, even an experienced user may need more wayfaring. And as we're talking about how even within a park, the complexity of the park also dictates that there might be different needs.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that has definitely
does
been a
anybody
topic.
else? Go ahead, Mandy, sorry.
That's definitely been a topic that we have talked about in our group, of the complexity of a regional park versus a park reserve, and the size and the scope and the difference. And so it's not a one size fits all approach. We're going to have kind of a plan for parks that are a little bit more, that are a little bit bigger or more complicated versus some that are smaller, and you're standing at the point and can access everything. So that's a great point.
Do you think people understand the difference between the park reserves and the size of them, and that there's limited trails? Do you think that's part of what a public education component could or should be? I don't know. I'm just kind of putting it out there.
I think one thing that happened in this past year, and Mandy certainly was a big help with this too, is as we were finding some of the traditional areas, busy areas of the parks being really, really busy, and with COVID, we were encouraging people to go places that were not as busy. We did some promotion around other great places in the park to hike, like Crowhassan as an example. And we had awesome success of getting people out to other areas, incredible success and new users. And so there's a big opportunity there, an ongoing opportunity to educate our users just what the differences are about a regional park and a park reserve and what kind of amenities. It kind of goes back to what Mark was saying too, is this, you know, the spectrum of users. And, you know, if we get someone that comes to a regional park where they just hike on the paved trail and it's a paved trail loop, you know, and they come back to the park, maybe their third visit, they're, you know, interested in doing a little bit more, or turf trails or something. So how do we help them transition along that line, building on their uses? Or maybe next time they're going to come back and bring their bikes, or maybe next time they're going to come and try cross-country skiing or whatever. So how do we keep building on those experiences and help them feel successful along that spectrum as they try new things? So, you know, we have so much to offer on a lot of different levels for a lot of different people. And so how do we match our communication and information to all those users is really the challenge and the goal, and it's exciting.
Absolutely. All right, with since I'm not hearing any more comments from anybody, I'll give you one last moment to chime in with any other comments or questions. Otherwise, we'll proceed to our next agenda item. But I do definitely want to take the time to express our thanks to both of you coming out. You know, I think it was important to hear about both of these concepts together. Otherwise, we would have been speculating about one or the other. And to know that there's two teams working on them, I think it's helpful for us to understand and know that.
Thank you.
So thank you
Thanks for having us.
All right, let's proceed with our next agenda items, which will be item number 6B, Recreation Program Update. Patty, who's going to lead us in this item? Hi, Tyler.
That would be me. Hello, everyone. Thanks for having me and Ann here today. Ann's here with me. I think it's, you know, maybe been a little while since I've been with most of you, but I'm Tyler Thompson, the recreation specialist with Three Rivers and the Scott County Parks with the Outdoor Recreation School. I put all of the information in the meeting packets. Hopefully you either have that accessible or were able to look at it a little bit before. But I'm just going to provide kind of a brief overview of some of the information listed in there. So I'm just going to go through all of that information, wrap up with a little summary, and then take any questions that people have as well. So we're in the start of a new year, and it was about a year ago when most of our programming stopped. We just tapped a few maple trees, had a scout group out middle of March when things kind of started shutting down. So it's been about a year since, pre-COVID programming. So programs have changed quite a bit, and the last year has certainly been very challenging. But I think we're looking forward to getting a little bit more on our feet heading into spring and summer. In the meeting packet or the write-up, I'm just going to start by going through kind of table 1 and figure 1. Both are pretty much the same information, just different visuals depending on your preference, more visual or more numerical. And I think figure 1, the graph showing the program participation going back to 2015, hopefully is a little bit familiar since we review something similar to this every year. But just looking at program participation over the years, 2016 was a really high year. That was prior to my time. And about between 2016 and 2017 was when there was kind of the change in programming model with the outdoor recreation school coming over and beginning to run the recreation programs with many staff departing kind of through a burnout. So but 2017 to 2019, really kind of consistent, sustainable growth. And 2020, I think, would have looked very similar to that. And then with COVID, obviously, participation numbers dropped drastically. And while, park use increased, there was a big demand for people participating in programs and getting outside. Some of the big impacts of 2020 include not having any spring public programs with kind of the state shutdown. Summer camps were significantly cut back, and a few were able to be brought back with pretty limited participation. There was virtually no, private group programs. We're doing, large school group programs, the big fall outdoor education days with pretty much almost all of the Scott County schools. So there was no field trips, transportation on buses. So, major reductions in programming. And then this past winter also was a challenging programming season with big spikes in the fall and lots of state requirements and regulations that changed about every maybe 2 to 3 weeks between November and January. So a lot lower participation in 2020. Still some really good areas of growth. We were able to offer some more fall public programs with smaller group sizes, which ran very successfully. And the fall public participation program numbers were just slightly higher than fall 2020. So that's a good sign just to see more people coming out in that fall season. So that's just kind of a little summary kind of on participation over the years. And then just looking at kind of total district-wide participation for the outdoor recreation school between Scott County and then kind of the upper Three Rivers and Hennepin County. So in addition to myself, my other colleagues were a team of about 10 people, and the majority of them are doing their primary programming and work up in Hennepin County. So our program participation and kind of reach in Scott County is about maybe 20 to 25% of what we're doing up in Hennepin County. And in 2020, kind of pretty similar, consistent decline in program participation between what we're doing here in Scott County and district-wide. So just the effects of programming overall definitely impacted all of the park district and the work that we're doing as well. And then moving on to table 3, public program participant age demographic. So this is something Patty and I have talked about a little bit recently, just to kind of have a good grasp on, who are the audience we're serving in the different age categories. So I broke it down by youth under 12, kind of the teen range, 13 to 17, adults up to 59, and then adults 60 plus. Most of the audience we're serving is that youth audience, and that primarily comes from all of the summer camps that we're doing. We have a large participation from summer camps, which are, essentially all youth programs. And I will say too, this information is just what we know for public programs, because we can, we have a lot of that information when people register. Our private group education programs, we don't know the ages of everyone attending, because most of the time there's just one main contact who brings a group of 30 or 200. Now, generally, most of those are youth groups, but this information right here is just specific to public programs and summer camps. But generally, when you're looking at youth and adults, we're about 60% serving youth. The other 40% would be serving adults through public programs, family programs, and adult specific programs as too. So about 60-40 between youth and adults, kind of when you add them up. Not everyone is required to list their age for certain programs, so we don't have it for everybody, but I think about 85% of the data that I have was people listing their ages. So it does give us some good information to look off of. And as I mentioned, this past winter was a little bit of a challenge with a lot of changing regulations and restrictions, and the polar vortex in the last few weeks in February, when we had many programs scheduled, such as snowshoeing. But now we're moving into spring. I think things are looking up. We've got lots of maple syrup programs planned for March. We've been reaching out to some of our school groups that we typically work with on a regular basis in the spring and the fall. And many of them are very interested in wanting to come out for a field trip or wanting to do something with us. It's just a matter of fact as if their administration or district will allow that. So they're optimistic that they want to do something with us, but at this time we're kind of in a holding pattern with administrations as they're starting to shift back to in-person, determining whether or not they'll allow field trips, transportation, or external people to come onto their school sites as well. So kind of in a holding pattern with some of those, but still lots of great optimism from those different parties. Some of the challenges that we will still be kind of facing and working with throughout the rest of this year and maybe beyond are just the group capacities, if there are further state restrictions that would be in place, and just making sure we can continue to keep people, physically distanced until everyone's vaccinated or the virus is gone. Sanitizing equipment will be another thing that's kind of more of a limiting factor now than it has ever been, with less sharing of equipment, just handing off one bow in archery to the next person. So those are kind of two of some of the challenges that we will be continuing to work through and address in the future. I think last year in 2020, we were still able to do a lot of great work, and we were able to still do some private programs with some of our great partners like Prior Lake Savage Area Schools and Community Education, the Southwest Metro International Walking Club, and one of our partners that we work very closely with up in Hennepin County, the Minneapolis-St. Paul VA Hospital, and Team River Runner brings a group of adapted kayakers out to some of our parks, and we were able to bring them down to Cleary Lake a few times for some adapted paddling, which was a great experience as well. And I think with that, moving into spring and summer, we have 14 summer camps planned for the summer as of right now. Registration for those will open later in March, and I think between summer camps, spring programs, and summer programs, taking into account program capacities, sanitizing equipment, we're looking like things will be starting to look a little more normal of what they were prior to COVID, with just some of these new modifications and kind of restrictions in place. And with that, I think I'm just going to end with a short kind of story experience from a program I did last week with our one of our good partners, the International Walking Club. We did a cross-country ski excursion last week, And I'm just going to read a short message that I received from their teacher, our main program, kind of our main program content. So last week we went cross-country skiing, and it was our first in-person program that we have done with this group since the prior winter, essentially. And they had 5 students come out and their teacher. And this is what she sent me in an email. The students really enjoyed their experience. As one of them said, it was her dream to try cross-country skiing, and all of the others saw it as a positive experience. Just trying something new and different can change their attitude and build their self-confidence. AK, one of the students, had a job interview at Sanmar for a promotion that afternoon, competing with 9 other individuals, and he got the job. He said the skiing experience improved his confidence and it really helped. So they're just a really enlightening, positive moment for that individual, and to hear from this teacher was great as well. So with that, Anne, if there's anything you want to add, feel free to jump in, or Patty. Otherwise, I'm happy to take any questions that people have.
I will just jump in briefly for those of you I haven't met. I'm Ann Yeager, and I work with Tyler in the Outdoor Recreation School. One of the things that we'd like to focus on going forward is just the development of more key relationships in Scott County. Reaching out to people that maybe already have a warm relationship with, schools, nonprofits, other public sector organizations that might want to partner with us. And that's happening a little bit with Scott County Public Health, and of course a number of schools, but we're looking to just meet and connect with more people. So if you have someone that you think would be a good match for us to visit with and connect with and try to determine if we could do some programming with them, please pass that information on to Tyler and I, or if you have an opportunity to do a handoff or an introduction for us, we appreciate that too. It's really nice to be able to talk to executive directors for nonprofits, or decision makers in other government agencies or schools that can help expedite the process or kind of see the bigger picture. And if you do have any of those connections that you can share with us, we'd very much appreciate it. That is one of the initiatives, or one of the focuses that at least I have for the next year.
Great, thank you.
I might.
Does anybody have any? Yes, go ahead, Mark.
So just one, well, I have lots of questions, but I only ask one. Either Tyler or Ann. What's the, first of all, does the Let's Go Fishing program roll up under this area? And if so, have we had any communication with them, or what their thoughts are on that program this year is going to look like, or even if they're planning to run it this year?
That program does not fall under us.
Okay.
That goes to Tom Bach, who I saw was on here, but I'm not sure if he is either. So I do not know the answer to that question.
Okay, all right, thanks.
You know, Mark, if you have another question, now's the time.
Well, it's a silly question. I had a friend, in all of your programming out there, I think I saw snowshoeing mentioned, right? So I had a friend who went down to one of our parks and rented snowshoes, right? But the question became, where does he snowshoe? Because if he's going to snowshoe on trails, well, that's called putting boots on and walking. And we don't want our people, we don't want our guests to leave the trails, right? We don't want you to just go snowshoeing off yonder. So again, it's not specific to the programming, but it's just a general, when I saw snowshoeing in there, made me think of that. But no, that's really all.
Well, I guess one thing.
Kind of back to the original thing about usage.
One thing that we typically cover in a snowshoeing program is where you can snowshoe, because that's a very valid point. You know, there's trails and we want people to stay on the trails, or I should say the policy is stay on the trails. There's ski trails, there's multi-use trails. So, you know, at Cleary, we do snowshoeing on the multi-use trail and then kind of the golf course area. We've gotten permission to do that. And then at Murphy Hanrahan, within the kind of single track mountain bike area, that's one of the areas on those single track trails where we've snowshoed. And then in some of the, I guess just the winter multi-use trails, which would be the horse trails in the spring through fall season. So, so those are some of the areas that we do the snowshoeing programs on. But I do think that that's a valid point, because a lot of snowshoeing can happen successfully off trails. So there's a little bit of a, you know, a sticky point there.
Yeah, if I were going to snowshoe on a groomed trail, well, then I just put boots on and walk. I mean, half the joy of snowshoes is being out in snow. So anyway, all right, thank you.
Mark, I think you're spot on about that, because I know sometimes I will choose to participate in an outdoor activity that's going to take me off trail, because it's an opportunity to go into parts of the park that I normally would not be able to have access to. And, you know, and if we can create those kind of experiences that give you, you know, a special access that you normally, you know, a regular park user wouldn't be able to have, I think there's attraction and a draw to that. Again, you know, maybe with a time visitor, maybe it's like, hey, I can go somewhere in the park I don't get to see. Let's do this. So, yeah. Anybody else have any comments?
Madam Chair, I'll add something. Let me turn my camera on here. I just wanted to mention that I've talked to Ann and Tyler about coming to Scale. It's been a few years since we've had an ORS person go to the Scale meeting and talk about what it is they do in the partnership. And it's really a great opportunity to have city councils, city administrators, school board members, superintendents hear more about this program and the opportunities. And Alyssa is actually going to be going possibly in May to talk about a couple other things. So I'm looking at trying to figure out, are Ann and Tyler available then? I don't know that May is the best timing. So Ann and Tyler, I'll be seeking feedback from you on that, but you know, maybe we can get a few minutes earlier, you know, in April or something. And then I had a question about that, Commissioner Ulrich. I'm kind of thinking you may be the one in this meeting who has the most sense for, you know, what time of the year is the best time that we have more superintendents in attendance at Scale. Are they at every monthly meeting, or are they more likely to be at certain ones that we'd want to target?
Yeah, I don't think there's any given meeting that we would have more than another. You know, I do think this next coming meeting, for example, Shakopee's giving a presentation, the school district, but I don't know, you know, when more will be pending.
Okay.
It's kind of sporadic with schools.
Okay. I can maybe do a little. Oh,
I do think the parks, you're on an upcoming agenda for Scale. At least you're going to be approached, I think, to be in the next month or two to come and present. Is Tracy talked to you about that?
Yeah, that's in May. Yep, there's several topics, and this certainly could go on in May, and if that's all we get, that's great. I think part of the thinking is, I think Ann and Tyler wanting to get those relationships started earlier. You know, is there a potential that if we made an impact or a relationship in April, that potentially we could even have a May or summertime program, but we will take whatever we can, you know, what they'll give us. So I'll work with Tracy on it. Yeah.
Well, I have one question or comment back on that. Is there an opportunity, if not necessarily presenting, but to be invited to, for example, the next one with the Shakopee schools? I mean, is that an informal way to develop that natural connection with them where you're not presenting, but you're there listening to their presentation? John, can
I
someone
would say
in the public
yes.
come to those?
Yeah,
Yeah,
I would say
Scale
yes,
is-
I would take that opportunity.
Scale is meeting, by Zoom now. Hopefully, somewhere in the next 6 months, we'll be meeting in person. Then it's a different dynamic. But so there's less networking going on because of Zoom.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But easier. I mean, easier to listen in. You don't have travel time or anything like that. So, do you know if she wanted to attend the Zoom? Is that some, how would she connect up to do that?
Well, you can just ask to be put on the list to receive an invite. We'll probably go through Tracy.
Yeah, Madam Chair, I can help with that, with connecting Ann and Tyler to probably Lisa Koner and Tracy. Absolutely. I think that's a great idea.
But don't you think in person would have more impact?
Well, why can't we do both?
No, okay. Another thing is, what about fish? You got a number of churches from all over the county. You got a number of nonprofits. They have their monthly meeting. And, churches have youth groups. Nonprofits are looking for things to do also. That would be another opportunity to get our parks in front of people that probably don't use them.
Madam Chair and Commissioner Hennon, so we did have ORS present at the January fish board meeting. Is there a fish member meeting?
Yes.
Second Thursday of every month. One
Okay.
topic that if the parks could develop a topic of sort of mental health, physical health in a COVID environment or in a Zoom environment, that would be a compelling, you could frame all that you do in terms of helping people get out and get fresh air and exercise and more vibrancy. I think that would be a way to frame a topic that would be appealing at fish or scale.
Well, I do want to invite you. I'm going to be presenting at Fish in April. So I want to invite you guys to come and listen to my presentation. I honestly don't know how much cross, one of the great things about Fish I always felt was just the opportunity to get to talk to people and the introductions that happen at those live meetings, and the connections I made that way. John, I really do miss them. So I do look forward to when Fish is meeting again on a monthly basis and being able to meet new people in the community that way and make those personal connections, because those really do make a difference.
Well, according to Biden, by end of May, he's saying enough vaccination for everybody to get a vaccination. So if that's true, we should be around the corner in terms of getting back to meeting face to face on a widespread basis.
Let's hope.
Thanks for your ideas, and I will follow up with Patty to firm up some of the dates and times, and would love to take an opportunity to, even if it's be able to just attend or watch the scale or the fish meeting just to get familiar. I think that's a great opportunity. Thank you.
All right, thank you, everybody. Are there any other comments or questions before we move on? Again, Tyler and Ann, thank you again. I appreciate you attending and contributing to our meeting today. We really appreciate that. Not hearing any other comments, let's move on to our next agenda item, which is introduction of project concepts for the Met Council's Equity Grant Program. which is item number 7A. I believe Alyssa is joining us for that.
Yes, that is correct, Madam Chair.
Hi, Alyssa.
Hi. All right, well, thank you, Chair and Commissioners.
Your volume's a little low for me. Excuse me, your volume's a little low for me. Is it for anybody else?
Nope.
Go ahead, start talking again.
Is it better now? I have a headset in, but I could take it out.
That's
It is
good.
better.
Nope.
Okay,
Good,
good.
thank you.
All right, thank you so much. I struggle with that constantly. You never know what you're gonna get. So, so today I want to share with everyone our 2 project concepts for the Met Council Equity Grant Program. This may ring a bell from 2019 when they released their previous equity grant program, but in 2021 they released a new version, a new notification of funding availability, and a new application. So the funding for this grant is available for up to 3 years with a possible 4th year extension. The goal of the Equity Grant Program is to strengthen equitable use of regional parks and trails with projects highlighting one or more of the equity categories, including age, race, ethnicity, income, national origin, and ability. This grant is really focused on trying to promote projects that have partnerships within their community, but also within between organizations and just within the agencies themselves. There's a lot of money on the table this year. So there's $664,000 that's available for competitive capital projects, but something that is different than the previous grant cycle is that there is now money available for non-capital projects or programming costs, and there is $1,400,000 available for that. And that money is only available to the implementing agencies. So there are 10 of those and a lot of money on the table. So it's a great opportunity to try and put projects forward. And just some contingencies about the grant: no agency can receive more than $200,000 in non-capital funds and no more than $200,000 in capital funds. So you could apply for a capital project and a non-capital project. Theoretically, you could receive funds for both, but not more than those numbers. So like I mentioned, I'm going to share some information about the 2 projects that we are hoping to put forward applications for this program. One is a capital project at Cedar Lake Farm working on improved access for shore fishing. And the other is a non-capital project building upon the Healthy Hour or the park's mental health and wellness program, excuse me, to try and get that initiative started. So the first one, the capital project at Cedar Lake Farm, the equity focuses for this project are looking like it's going to be ability, income, and race, highlighting the facts that a lot of the users of the shore fishing, it's definitely popular among our individuals who are of lower incomes and also individuals from communities of color. But we also wanted to integrate some accessibility improvements for the shoreline. It's very popular and we have an accessible dock, but there are improvements that can be made and that need to be made for it to be brought up to current code. So for this grant, we're working on asking for it to cover the updates to our current dock to meet those codes, to make it more accessibility friendly, but then also for some sort of design and phase 1 construction of a project that would improve and increase shore fishing availability, because right now it's very popular and people are kind of shore fishing off of the shoreline restoration area or in really close proximity to the swimming areas or the canoe kayak launches. So to design some sort of natural shoreline amenity that would allow people to shore fish without compromising the shoreline restoration areas. And then just a loose phase 1 construction. That's pretty vague because I am not a designer. I don't know what that could possibly look like, but we have some ideas. But the idea would be for the grant to help cover us, for us to do the design and some sort of implementation. Then the partnerships that we have in place for this include buy-in and support from Let's Go Fishing, from a group called ProAct Inc. That work with individuals with disabilities, the Minnesota DNR, and then some other community partners. And our goal would be to try and include them in workshops throughout the design and construction process to make sure that what we are making is relevant and beneficial to these critical partners. So then the second project that we're hoping to put forward an application for is the non-capital Parks Mental Health and Wellness Program expansion. This is really highlighting on equity areas of race, ethnicity, and income, leaning on the idea that mental health disproportionately affects individuals from those communities. And this program, the Healthy Hour, is, if you recall, is a free program that we tried to kickstart last fall to gear towards first-time park users or beginner park users to engage them in low-impact, beginner-friendly activities throughout the parks that would help promote mental health and wellness in parks and not just physical recreation as a use for our parks. And so we had help from Tyler and Ann, who were here before, making that a possibility and getting some public programs on the ground in our parks. But it would be really nice for us to make more of an impact and also have someone who isn't working on a ton of other things to be facilitating this type of work. So within this grant, we're looking to ask for a part-time, a 0.5 FTE coordinator position whose role would be to coordinate this type of program. Also including asking for some assistance that would help make this program and initiative a real benefit, and to be able to make sure we're really connecting with our communities of color and our lower income communities. So that includes money for transportation, not just on an individual level, but also perhaps for group transportation, some translation assistance, marketing for our programs and marketing materials, some contracting dollars to contract out some of the program facilitation. So when we were working on the Healthy Hour programs, we were doing the facilitation with the brilliant minds of our ORS and our outdoor education team. But this would allow us to bring in wellness coaches, forest bathing instructors, maybe Tai Chi instructors, individuals who are really in their craft and who are really aware of wellness activities, particularly those promoting mental health, but that can be done in our regional park system, and then offering those programs for free. So this money would cover that. And also for seasonal assistance to help with just numbers facilitation. It's looking like the summer is going to be trying to have more possibility for gathering, and one person can handle a smaller group, but if a larger church group, for example, decided that they really loved the idea and they wanted to bring 25 or even 50 people out, having some seasonal help could help us facilitate those programs in a meaningful way. And then our partnerships for this application is, so the Healthy Hour program was created in partnership with Scott County Public Health, and we do have their support, and also money from SHIP that could help support aspects of this program moving forward. We also have the support from a community leader at St. Francis Hospital who works for Alina, and as well as just the hospital and Alina's backing in general. So I've been working with them to get a letter of support for their interest and support in mental health programming and the connection with parks. And then as well as our normal community partnerships that would help us do the engagement for this, this project. And just a timeline to finish it off. So the notification of funding availability came out in February. The application was due a quick 6 weeks after that. So the application is due March 15th. And we are expected to know whether or not the project proposals were accepted, and and have the money in hand in June. So that is the current timeline. And then again, it is a 3-year grant with a possible extension of a 4th year. I think that is depending on some uncertainties, or you'd have to have an appeal to have it extended. It's not a guaranteed extension, but it could happen. So with that, I would love to take any questions or thoughts about those 2 project proposals. They are still in the works, but quickly becoming realized as March 15th is approaching. Thank you.
Madam Chair, before you turn it over to the commissioners for questions and feedback, may I just say a couple more words about how we landed on these projects, just so there's some context? Okay.
Yes, that'd be helpful. Thank you, Patty.
Sure. All right. So in doing this, we were hoping to find some compelling projects that also would help us address sort of some either existing issues that we're seeing or that could have multiple benefits. So maybe there's an area that we already are trying to move forward. So at Cedar Lake Farm, we have a persistent issue with, well, it's a wonderful thing that people want to shore fish at Cedar. We have a pretty erosive shoreland there that we invested in to stop the erosion and did some nice shore buffers. And shore fishing is so popular, people are creeping into those areas. And what will end up happening if that continues is we simply will end up where we were 10 years ago, where we didn't have a natural shore and it'll start eroding. So one of the things we were trying to figure out is, can we, through this project, meet multiple goals, and one of those being add some form of shore fishing so that we're not encouraging use in those more sort of erosive and vulnerable shore faces. We're not exactly sure what this could look like. It could look like what some folks have seen at Lakefront Park. They dropped some of those really large limestone stepping stones into the water. Now those are good for able-bodied park users. They can be really great options, and I think they can actually be good for fish habitat. That's just one example. We also need to do this for folks that are not fully mobile or maybe using wheelchairs. So I just wanted to give you a little bit of background on some of our thinking behind choosing that project. And then for the Healthy Hour, I just want to note that we, several years ago, Tyler alluded to how we changed the model of our the programs that we were offering, and we needed to make it more first sustainable. And in doing so, the outdoor recreation program took over all of the programming, and they're doing wonderful. They're very focused on outdoor rec. So what we don't have right now is a very diverse program offering. And so there's an interest in us diversifying for nature programming for seniors and for mental health, the mental health area. And the second project that Alyssa talked about would help us sort of move a little bit in that direction. So I just wanted to add a little bit of that context. Thank you.
All right, I'll take the opportunity to maybe make some first comments, and then I'll turn to everybody else. I think, the concept of the shore fishing, one thing that comes to mind about that, really how it can have a lasting impact into our other parks, because what we learned from that project at Cedar Lake Farms and what we could do there to enhance and preserve the shoreline and provide that fishing, we could then use that same knowledge going forward as we're developing other waterland access in our other parks, specifically at Spring Lake Park, where we'll have access to a large portion of Spring Lake, and then we also have water access to that small portion of Prior Lake. So, I see how what we learn and do there will have could have those multiple applications in the future at other locations. So at first I was wondering but I do see how it could be some real benefits in what we learned there and take forward. So then I'll turn over to anybody else for some additional comments. Come on, don't make me call on you, but I will. Kristen, we haven't heard from you today. Kristen, do you have anything to add? I don't see that she's on here anymore, so I apologize for that. Jerry, Mark, any comments about either of these ideas?
No, I think both ideas are wonderful. I apologize. It was probably in like the first sentence that's in the document, but is there a cost figure, or did somebody already ask that and I missed that in the discussion? Do we know what sort of dollars we're looking for?
Yes, thank you for that question. The grant applications can be up to $200,000 each.
Yes, I was aware of that, but I'm just curious, do we know what we're looking for yet?
We are looking for close to $200,000 per application.
Oh, okay, cool. Thank you.
Eric, are you still on? Do you have
Yes,
any comments or
I
questions?
don't
on
have
these
any
projects?
comments. No, nothing really. It's just hard to get participation right now, and at the parks, right? Because I know the team, I think it was Tyler and Alyssa back in the fall, trying to get people involved to go to the parks, right? I think it's a great idea. We just got to figure out how to continue to encourage people to get into the parks and participate with others. Because like today, I went to Cleary Lake this morning. There was nobody there when I was trying to ski out on the golf course. And when I went back this afternoon to go for a run, the place was completely packed. So.
Yes, thank you for that comment, Commissioner. I think that, we are definitely thinking about the lessons we've learned from implementing the Healthy Hour program in the fall and thinking about ways that we can remove any possible barriers to coming to the program. But also one nice aspect of if we were to get funding for this is we would have someone whose job and main focus is to get people to come for those programs. So it's not Tyler or myself trying to advocate for all of these programs that are going on at the parks and come to all of them and spend all of your time here and who cares what you do with the other time. But it'd be a targeted approach that we think would be more successful than perhaps approaches that we have taken in the past.
Yep. I think it would be good to also reach out to the people that use the park and see what their feedback is too. I spoke to a guy today. He was cross country skiing at 5 o'clock, right? I'm like, you should come back early in the morning, right? When the weather is more ideal for it, right? So maybe just check and see what people want, right? Or maybe you could learn from them and try to figure out a program right around that as well. Maybe it's a lunchtime break hour, right? Who knows?
All right, great. Last chance for any other comments, and then we'll move on the agenda item. Okay, hearing none, we're going to move on to agenda item number 8 with project updates. I think we'll probably be starting with a Big Woods Regional Trail naming update.
Okay, thank you. That's me. So just a very small update. The county board will be formally adopting the name at their next meeting. So a month ago, so you might be experiencing like Groundhog's Day, repeat. I said this a month ago and it was set to go, but there was a really odd issue with some information in the packet not being able to be read by the new county board meeting software. So we literally were held up by a kind of a strange technical issue. That's been just figured out. It was confirmed for me today. So that is on the next board meeting, which I think is the 16th. So that next time we see each other, we should have an official, that should have officially been recognized. Moving on to 2021 Opac calendar. No changes on that. I just wanted to include the calendar that we all agreed on over the last couple of months and that the commission decided on. Any questions about that?
Excellent.
No questions on the calendar? Okay. And then the third item under A, the nature connection. Alyssa, could you share about that?
Absolutely. So hi everyone again. I'm going to share our nature connection for this month, where I'm going to highlight the volunteer event that occurred on February 20th that I mentioned previously, doing some interseeding work at Doyle Kennefic. It was a really great event. There's a page included in your packet with some really great pictures from the day. So if you haven't looked at them, I encourage you to do so. But it was a really great event. We happened to luck out with the weather. After 2 weeks or more of super cold polar vortex, we had a really sunny 22-degree day, which shouldn't feel warm, but it felt so warm and nice. And we had a really great turnout of families and church friends and just various individuals from around the community that were really excited to be outside and to give back to the parks. They were super speedy. We got everything seated that we needed to really quickly. Everyone was really eager to do more work, and they're asking about more opportunities to get out back at Doyle and also just in our other parks in general. So overall, it was a really positive, great Saturday afternoon. And I just wanted to thank the individuals that helped out. So thank you to the park staff for helping me. We also had some help from an individual from the SWCD, and then our Madam Chair also helped us out on that day. And anybody that was there can attest that it was just a gorgeous day at Doyle, and it was a really great time to just be able to spend some time outside and not freeze. Thank you.
Great, thanks, Alyssa.
Madam
We're
Chair,
gonna
can I
proceed to-
share my family experience that day?
Yeah, please.
So I had let my son know a month or so ago that we were gonna be volunteering down at Doyle and that we were gonna be helping to oversee the prairie. And he was pretty excited. But the night before, he was kind of crabby about it. You know, he is 12, right? But I was kind of surprised. And that morning, like as the morning went on, he got more and more uninterested. And, you know, I found myself bribing, like, we'll stop for a Sunday. It's all going to be good. And we get there and we start grabbing the seed out of the bucket and throwing it around. And that's when we came upon sort of the reason why he was so antagonistic about it. He thought that we were going to be in the middle of the winter taking the seed and digging into the ground and burying the individual seed into the prairie. And he was thrilled when he realized how easy and fun it was to grab that seed and throw it across the field and through there. Anyways, it was pretty funny. It was a great day. That's my family.
Well, I'll share some of the conversations I had with some of the participants, and one of them was very similar, where a couple came out because they kind of wanted to see how this is done. How do you do this in the snow? You know, isn't it going to get eaten? Isn't, you know, what about this or that? And they're in the process of trying to restore some of their property, so they thought this was an opportunity to see how the experts do it at the park. And so it was kind of great to talk to them. I also talked to a couple who were unfamiliar with the park, didn't know anything about it, talked about the difference between it being a park and a park reserve. Most people were very interested to hear about the reserve concept and how it was really being designed, and thus we were planting this is to enhance that nature aspect of it. But they wanted to know if they could come back and go snowshoeing there. And I explained that the park was closed, it wasn't open, that they got special access. The couple was from Jordan, and I asked them if they had ever been to Cedar Lake Farms, which they hadn't in 25 years, since their kids were little. So I talked about that, and they were going to go back and explore that park and do some snowshoeing there. So it's just the opportunity to talk to people, and, you know, even longtime residents are like, no, I had no idea any of this was here. You know, we still and will always have that challenge, I think. So it was a great way to create some new pathways, and well worth it in a lot of ways, I think. And with that being said, I guess that's my commissioner's report. So let's go around. Does anybody else want to start with any update or report that they want to comment on? And please include any of your nature connections that you may have had or experienced.
Madam Chair, did you want to do the added agenda item now and then move on to
Oh,
B?
I apologize.
Okay.
Yep, I forgot that. Yes, please.
Okay.
Let's do the added agenda item, which is the county board workshop, an update on that.
Yeah,
Thank you.
so yeah, I just confirmed today that we are going to have our county board workshop on March 30th at 9 a.m. And I want the commissioners to make note of that time because you are invited. And we're going to talk about a range of things. One of them will be looking at, the upcoming Spring Lake development. We have to start looking at the operational impacts of that. So staff has been working actually for quite a while to figure out different numbers, figuring out estimates of, what kind of resource needs we'll have, equipment, utilities, that kind of thing. And then we're also going to be looking at, once again, that next sort of, 5 to 10 year, where does it make sense to do our park expansions? And you might recall that we've talked about the Cedar Lake shore expansion with camper cabins. We've talked about introducing trail use at Doyle. And those really those two are probably the biggest things we've talked about, and then a little bit of trail stuff. So anyways, we've also put together, staff has worked really hard to put together estimates for resource needs associated with those as well. We've gone through our master plans and used our master plans as sort of our scoping to look at what those developments might look like and what the resource needs would be. So it'll be a good dialogue. We need some feedback from the county board about what is our next step. So we have, Spring Lake we have our design and our construction funding identified for that. But what's next? So anyway, so March 30th, 9 a.m. and I can email a reminder out about that. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you. All right. Once again, Jerry, do you have any update or any report that you want to share with the PAC?
Well, I thought it was really a nice presentation about signage in our parks, within our parks. My question is, do we have enough signage outside of our parks to tell where our parks are? If this couple from Jordan lived there 25 years and they didn't know nothing about Cedar Lake, maybe they never heard of Clary Lake, or maybe they never saw a sign for Murphy Hanran. Amen.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Jerry. Very good point. Does anybody else have anything that they want to add? Mark?
No, my only thought was I'm going to send Patty an email, but the kiosk stuff, we should really hook them up with Nathan and all the work we did on the kiosk that's at the downtown in Shakopee at the trailhead, and see if we can't conform to a look, feel, and design, as opposed to now having Three Rivers come in with a whole new look, feel, and design for kiosks after all the work we did. But I was going to send you a note, Patty, on it. So otherwise, no.
Well, Mark, I have a question. Do you have a nature connection you can share with me?
Do I have a nature connection that I could share with you? Yes, absolutely. So earlier this week, we had snow. I went out and shoveled my half of the driveway because it's a duplex, right? And I was so happy and proud. And then I went out, 5 hours later and saw that the neighbors had melted anyway. So that's my nature connection.
I love it. I love it. Thank you. Just kind of checking to see, Kristen,
Yep.
Are you there?
Can you
Thank you.
hear me? I lost my Wi-Fi connection, so now I'm dialed in. So.
That explains it. Thank you.
Yep.
Yes, we can.
Nope. It just
Yeah,
it just dropped, and so I'm on my phone now. So that's nature for you, I guess, out here in the country. So I have to say once again that the park is just amazing at Cedar Lake this winter. We've had, good ice and good winter weather, and the place is bustling every single day. And to see so many people accessing the lake ice from the park, I would say this is the first year that I've seen so much of that activity with people pulling their sleds out onto the lake for fishing. And it's just really neat to see the use. And hopefully the couple in Jordan will find it. So
they will. They've been there, but not since it was the private resort.
Yeah, no, it's the walkers. There's been some walkers that started COVID walking, two ladies that started last March, and they walk every single day, and they walk through the neighborhood, but they walk the park. And now they said, they're so excited that they can use the paved trails inside of the park because they're maintained so well, and they were afraid in the winter that they wouldn't be able to walk them because of snow and ice, and they're there still every single day. So that's nice
Excellent.
to see.
How's the garbage situation on the lake post ice fishing?
It's not too bad that I can see. I myself haven't been on the lake since they came off this week. But with the wind, you usually see it blowing around, and it's not too bad. So hopefully, and in previous years, the Lake Association schedules a day like now next coming weekend to go out and do it. The last 2 years it had to be canceled because the ice conditions deteriorated so fast. But this year I think that's the plan again, is to have people go out and that live on the lake and do what we can to help clean it up. So
I don't know if we missed any opportunity with you, Kristen, to comment about any of the other subject matters. Were you able to hear everything, or is there anything you want to add?
I heard most of it. I was just right up to the very end of Alyssa's presentation and the equity project. I heard both the presentations, and I'd been reading along. So I, feel comfortable with those. And I was listening to how, Patty was explaining how they arrived at them. So I don't have anything more to add. I thought they were very well presented and don't have any concerns with them. So.
Okay. Do you have any nature observation?
I've been out on the lake, and I like the fact that it's going to go away and become water. That's my nature observation.
Whether it's on the lake or on your driveway, it seems to be a theme here today.
Yes. So. Mm-hmm.
Excellent. Thanks. Pat, are you still with us?
Yes, I am here. Don't have any real specific reports to give. I guess the one nature moment for me, I guess, has been my daily morning walks, which at least up till now are still occurring in the dark. But enjoyed the opportunity to be out in the early morning, and particularly with the beautiful moons that I see in the sky in the morning. So it's definitely a experience I really enjoy, from a relaxing way to start the morning.
Great, thank you. Is there any other comments? John, is there anything you want to add?
No, I don't have any additional comments, no.
Great, thank you. Let's go on to our obviously nearly final topic, which will be number 9, upcoming meetings. Tentative topics listed out there on the agenda. Is there any comments or anything that we need to talk about for item number 9, Patty?
Madam Chair, no, not I don't have anything. Thanks.
All right, let's move on to our final agenda item, which is, I'll entertain a motion and a second to adjourn.
So moved, Ewert.
So move.
I heard Ewert move. Is there a second?
Second, Hannon.
All in favor of adjourning? Say
Aye.
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 All right, so moved, and we will adjourn our meeting at 7:50. Again, I want to thank everybody for participating, and I know it's often challenging on these Zoom meetings to do it this way, but I appreciate everybody's patience with both technology and the challenges of not being able to see you all in person, but I definitely appreciate your input and your comments, and miss seeing you all in person. So look forward to when that will happen soon, hopefully.
Yep. Thanks, Barb. Okay. Bye-bye.
Take
Thank
care,
you, everyone.
everyone.
Thank you.
All right, Nate.